Welcome to the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and this week I'm joined by Mif, Paddy and James as we once again cover all things Celtic. Mif, Saturday night at Tynecastle, how did you enjoy your viewing?
It was fantastic, Tino. Really enjoyed it. Well, maybe not so much the first half because I thought we were our own worst enemy at times. Bit of credit has to go to Hearts. I thought they were quite brave, pushed us back. But then Rio Hatate's imposter went off.
Rio and Tatty.
And the real Rio Hatate come on, and I think that made a huge difference. I think the more prominent a role he can play in our midfield, you just see how comfortable he is taking the ball on the half turn. He's just an incredible player, and that's what played out in the second half. We were able to play more of the game in Hearts half, and as a result I was able to sit with my cans and halves and enjoy it thoroughly.
Indeed. It's taken us 12 games to finally extend a bit of a lead. Obviously Aberdeen have pushed us all the way, but they fell short on Saturday afternoon, 2-1 to St Mirren. Has it surprised you that they've hung on for quite so long? And obviously we're not, we're only 3 points ahead just now, but...
Yes and no. It just shows you what benefit the League Cup can be to teams that aren't competing in Europe. If you can get that bit of momentum behind you at the start of the season, a new manager comes in, tries to instill his methods and way of working, players win games, buy into that, fans get behind them, attendances rise, it all leads to that momentum. There's no European football. I think you can see the Hearts have really struggled with that to get some consistency. So it's not hugely surprising that somebody's had a run of that nature. It's probably been a bit overdue for someone to do what Hearts done under Burley a few years back. So no, Aberdeen have invested in their side. They've probably underachieved for a couple of years, to be quite frank. So what you've seen now, their best players are playing well. They've probably got a strong starting 11. Maybe not a huge depth of squad that we've got, and to go back to Saturday, it's probably that squad depth that's seen us win the game so comfortably.
James, ahead of the game, in the days before, we hear about new deals for both Alistair Johnson and James Forrest. Woo-hoo! Smart business by the club.
Very, very smart business. I mean, Johnson's a no-brainer. We all know the quality he's got. And then James comes off the bench and shows you exactly why he's got the extension. I thought he was class when he came on. And I've been, critical of James over the years because I've always thought there was more to him. But he's just developing into really mature, very wise, may I say. He plays the game as a mature player can and should. I thought he was excellent. Just came on, driving the whole time, getting involved, keeping the ball well. So yeah, very much deserving of his contract and looking like a one-club man.
I can't remember who it was I was engaging with in the comments on YouTube, but I was asking somebody, are you a fan of James Forrest? And he says it's easy to be a fan now when you accept his role. Maybe a couple of years ago it's like, he's done, he can't play all these games anymore. Now he's evolved, Paddy. He's a different type of player, and Saturday night was a case in point. In terms of what James Forrest brings, he brings all his quality, this maturity to his game. He retains possession brilliantly, and I think everybody wins here.
Absolutely. I think for Forrest, it's almost like the weight's off his shoulders. Might not look like that the way he runs, but he looks as if he's he looks as if he's just enjoying it more. I think you're not the only Celtic fan that's thought James Forrest could do so much more over his career, and I think we've seen some brilliant seasons under Rodgers when Rodgers first came in, and wanted to see that consistency from him, and I think that's always been an issue for James Forrest. But what he has given this club over the time that he's been here has been excellent for us, and for him to come in and just bring that calm that we kind of need at points as well in certain games. I thought he done really well on Saturday. I thought he just settled what we were doing. They got the goal back as well, and I just thought we still continued to kick on, and he's a big part of that. His link-up play just now, he just looks as if he's just really enjoying his football when he gets the opportunity.
Crucial part about James Forrest is, you're right to reference Rodgers' arrival first time round, before he did his midnight flight, and him establishing Forrest as a real first team player. I think Paddy Roberts' presence was a huge part of that, but also he still maintained that form under Lennon. No player was missed more in the disastrous COVID season than Forrest. He had a really bad ankle injury, and I think he's just struggled to re-establish himself as a first team player since that. I think his role changed under Ange slightly. I think he saw him more as a sort of backup player, and I think from whatever happened last winter when he was almost out the door, You know, there was a lot of rumours we were listening to offers at that time.
Cardiff City.
It's just something's just clicked into gear. Maybe it's more acceptance of what his role is within the squad. And to see him play the way he's playing just now, you could argue that he's probably been more consistent in his cameos and appearances over the past...
You know what to expect from him.
Over the past 12 months. Ironically, as he's coming to the twilight of his career, he seems to have found that level of consistency when he's maybe been relied on less. But for me, you know, my love of James Forrest is well known, and I think it will very much be a case of, as time passes, his record will just become better and better, because I don't think there's many in modern history that are going to get anywhere near it just by the way football's going.
He's not scored this season yet, has he? And if he does, somebody was saying give him the penalty on Saturday, because that would be his 16th year in a row, 16th season in a row of scoring for Celtic.
Is he not?
I've got all the stats. He's not scored this season, but listen, we're going to get to James later on. He features in this week's or last week's mystery goal scorer answer, so I've got some stats to come through at that point. But Paddy, it just makes perfect sense. James Forrest, he'll be here till 2026, and Arthur Johnson till 2029. One guy who's also been here a few seasons though is Kyogo, and he marked his 150th appearance for Celtic on Saturday night with his 80th goal. So far this season, maybe a wee bit low in his own numbers, but 7 goals and 3 assists. But overall, Paddy, he's just been incredible since joining. He's
been one of the best for me, and I think, again, I go back to that season under Ange, the pressure that we were under, you know, after a really, really difficult season the year before, a massive rebuild on our hands. For a player just to come in and slot in so comfortably, I always think back to the game against Dundee where he scored his hat-trick, and just the performance from him, and just the excitement that we got as fans of this is the next journey, this is the next squad, and he's just been massive for us. And I think we've had these debates over the last 3 seasons about, you know, do we swap it up with Giakoumakis? Do we swap him up with O? Do we swap him up with Adam Idah? It's his jersey, and it will always be his jersey. I just think he's the best striker at the club, and I think I've said this many a time. He's the best we've had since Larsson. I really, really do believe in that. A few do say about Dembele, if he hadn't got injured and then if he hadn't left when he left, it could be a bit different. But I just think for a natural poacher, but his movement away from the box as well, it's frightening. He offers so much for the attackers. It's just a joy to watch.
His calmness under pressure as well. When that Gordon makes an excellent save.
That is a good save. Aye.
And he's got the calmness of mind to not just lash at it. He places it and he goes across the goal, which the defender's he's never going to get to. You know, class. Yeah.
James, he signed in July 2021 a £4.5 million bargain.
100%. Yeah. I mean, what value for money? I mean, think without Kyogo any season, but that first season in particular, there's no way we win that title with him. No way. Yep. So a bargain for me, yeah.
Mif, Adam Idah is now on the screens thanks to your handiwork there. He played a huge part on Saturday night. How much of a boost will he have been given by the 2-goal performance?
Yeah, well, I think there's been a lot of chat about him. He certainly looks a wee bit leaner. I think it looks a wee bit more.
Do you think he obviously never travelled to Ireland for their internationals during the break? Do you think he's maybe made the most of that time and got to work?
I think that was the whole point. Was he felt he needed a bit of a freshen up. I think James made the point a couple of weeks back that we want him hungry and angry at not playing and kind of really forcing the issue. I get a bit of that myself. But rather than just accepting that he's the number 2, let's kind of really push it. And to be fair, it seems him and Kyogo do sort of dovetail quite well. He does make an impact whenever Kyogo's not playing and vice versa, but Kyogo's class is such that there aren't many strikers that we could sign that I think would replace him. You know, if you look at our budgets and things like the type of strikers we would go and buy, there's nobody like Kyogo we'd be able to get anywhere near.
It would take somebody incredible to come in and replace Kyogo properly.
Just look at the numbers. I mean, he's unbelievable. So, I mean, I'm quite happy with Big Idah. I just hope he gets, you know, he keeps making an impact for his own confidence. Because there are undoubtedly games that he's got to be called upon. I just felt the changes that we made on Saturday really had a massive impact in the game, and my own personal favourite is Paulo Bernardo. I just absolutely love that guy.
Yeah, do you know, player. I'll ask you a question about Bernardo in the middle part of the show, just through a listener's question, but he impresses every time. I think he's a great talent, and I've said it for a while now. he deserves more starts. I don't think he's had as many starts as he should have. James, staying with Adam Idah though, his tally so far for the season, 7 goals, no assists just yet, but 7 goals, same as Kyogo. But an interesting one that you might have seen, I think it was on the Everything Celtic Twitter account, he's averaging a goal for every 77 minutes of football that he's got this season. So despite the fact that I think we can all see he's been a wee bit out of sorts, he continues to get his goals.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that concentrated period to get his goals, and there is always a wee bit of skewing when, we've maybe put a team at the sword and stuff. Hearts were not done, but pretty much done by the time Idah and Bernardo and a few of them came on. But he's still to do his job. So the stats can be a wee bit misleading here because he's doing all his work in a concentrated period when a team might be flagging a wee bit. So, but I like him a lot as a player. He's my kind of striker, big physical guy, can get about the pitch as well, really tidy feet. I mean, can't remember who it was against. It might have been Falkirk, the cup game. This year he scored just a lovely goal, where some strikers would panic. He just had the presence of mind. He's a smart player as well. He's not just a big battering ram or anything. So I think it's horses for courses, but I think it's always going to be that way. Kyogo, as we're just saying, it's going to be the first pick. He scores the 2 goals on Saturday, and a few guys are saying, he should start on Wednesday night. Not for me. No. Kyogo's definitely in there. But he'll have his part to play, and when the games are going to be more physical, it's right up his street, and he should be picked first for those.
And he did, on that horses for courses theme, he got the start against Atalanta. And even though, he still wasn't at his best that night, he played an important role in occupying the centre half.
I thought he was very good, just in terms of stretching their backline and working them really hard, giving them no peace, and they were absolute monsters of guys, So I don't think he get the credit he deserves for that game and making sure that we did our work defending for the front.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got a huge part to play. Paddy, no Liam Scales on Saturday, sub not used, and Brendan Rodgers has gone with Carter Vickers and Trusty on that occasion. Do you think that's an indicator of that's his preferred pairing moving forward?
Potentially. I think with all the team, as we've kind of said, it's very, very unlikely that you see the back two and the striker really change in Celtic sides. And it is sometimes a rare moment when Idah gets to start. It is a rare moment when we see that we do change it about in the back four. We've had to quite a bit this season with injuries. I think he just wants to settle that down, and I think that was a statement after the international break that it's going to be Carter Vickers and Trusty. What I would say is that I still think it's a very long season, so you want to keep Liam Scales on his toes. I think they'll all help each other within that. I also wouldn't be surprised if we maybe consider another centre-half in January as well, just to keep everyone fresh, because, again, we're still, I think, monitoring Cameron Carter-Vickers game by game. And if we lose him, if we lose it, 2 of them, backs against the wall, especially in Europe.
I think we should be expecting to lose Carter-Vickers for what looks like maybe half a season every season.
Yeah.
So that going forward could lead to him becoming the number 2 if we sign a strong right-sided centre-half, because you can't have a guy as your number 1 centre-half that isn't going to be there for the season.
I think he's been unlucky with some niggles. I wouldn't estimate that he'll miss half a season, but
if you look at the record, it's poor.
He's had some, like it was a hamstring thing, then it was a toe thing, and they're not linked. It's not like he's got this ongoing back issue or knee issue and stuff. It's a couple of separate.
But they're probably
injuries.
A lot of it is linked
It's
in the sense that
it's
I've not kicked about a ball for a while. I've not moved as much as I have in a while, so there's little twinges here and there.
Your hammy no linked to your toe, no?
Not directly, there's a bit of distance between them. The doctors have spoken after, we'll take their words for it. No, I think you're right.
Cutting.
I think we've no, it was him dismissing the medical knowledge that we've got in the podcast.
No, I think we've agreed that we do need suitable backup for Carter Vickers, and at the moment Liam Scales and Trusty are good options for that left-sided position, and I think we need a better alternative behind Carter Vickers.
I didn't think Trusty was great the other night.
He certainly gave up one particularly big chance, didn't he?
I thought he looked quite ropey.
I think the whole team in the first half looked ropey.
No, but I even in the second half when we had control, I thought he looked quite indecisive. Just my take on it. He's been very impressive since a sluggish start, but with Trusty, I think there's still a long way to go before we see that level of commanding consistency that we've seen off Carter Vickers.
How many times, if any, have Carter Vickers and Trusty started together? I need to think. Is that
Maybe
the first?
3.
Is there a few?
I've had a couple of games.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
It's not. I'm not deriding the man by any manner of means. I just thought And Saturday night in particular, he'd have more than a few ropey moments.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I think centre halves in those pairings, that partnership's so important. And I think a run of games together will do them the world of good. I'd be surprised if he changes it for Bruges. I think
No chance.
By the same logic, you could also argue that Scales has been very harshly dealt with.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's not done a lot wrong.
I know you'll mention the point about quality, and I don't, especially movement of the ball or how quickly the ball's moved. I don't necessarily think you're wrong, but it might be that the desire to have trust in there. You might not necessarily what looks on paper like a stronger partnership might not actually equate to that.
I think it's
playing devil's advocate.
I think at this level, sentimentality goes out the window. Though.
Listen, it's no sentiment when it comes to Scales. I think if you've got a middle shed like that, you're getting no sentiment after.
That's it.
What about GT3 shed? That's just getting wild.
No, that's cute.
That's cute. No, I don't think Scales has done a lot wrong, to be fair. I think it's just a level you're at. You know, you don't need to make a mistake to go out. It just, you know, sometimes there's a guy waiting in the wings who might be a better alternative, and I think that seems to be the case with Trusty. But I think we've been pretty balanced on Liam Scales. A lot of folks are saying, oh, they're all so harsh to shoot down Liam Scales. I don't think that. I think we've given a lot of credit where it's due, but I think it's also okay, except that sometimes someone like Trusty might be a better option, particularly in terms of the on-the-ball stuff and starting attacks, which is going to be, there's a real onus in Celtic to go for this on Wednesday night against Bruges, and I do think Trusty stays in the team for that. Last guy, we don't have too much time to talk about him, and we have spent a lot of time on him this season for good reason, is Nicolas Kuhn. Just phenomenal again. You think he's gone too wide with that pass from Idah? You're looking at the way I said phenomenal?
No. No.
He's just excited.
But James, it's a hell of a strike to put you in cruise control.
Talked to my dad about it today. You're just kind of going, oh, he has gone a wee bit wide of that. You know, was it Kyogo was just about getting into the middle? Can he get that in the middle? Can he square it? Oh, right.
No bother. That's fine, mate. Fair enough, mate.
You carry on.
He's contracted until summer 2029. Celtic signed him on a 5.5-year deal at the time, and a few folk were questioning why. Now we know why. So the club hold all the cards, Paddy, but any concerns that he might move on sooner than we hope?
No.
I
think it went a Matt O'Reilly kind of schedule.
I think he's enjoying it. I really do, and I think that a testament to him if he goes and breaks into the Germany squad, and if he does do that in a Celtic jersey, then that's another reason of
game changer for us.
This is pretty decent, and other players will think the same. You're right. He's been excellent this season. I've seen the stat that he's 5 away for Jota.
That's right, in terms of goal contributions.
Assist contributions.
Did Hinkle get into the German squad when he was with us?
Jota's best season.
Aye. But the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
Aye. So sitting in November.
Did Hinkle get in the German squad when he was with us?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Did I really?
I'm sure he did, didn't he?
And we covered this last week, but Nagelsmann is quoted as saying that they're looking at Nicolas Kuhn. So here's hoping his phenomenal form continues at this part of the season. Hi guys, it's Tino here, and just a very short interruption to this week's show. If you're watching this episode of the Celtic Exchange on YouTube, then we want to bring you up to speed on a few small changes we've made there recently as we continue to grow the channel. Moving forward, the weekly show will now be made available early to YouTube channel members on a Monday night, before it's then put out on general release for everyone else on a Tuesday afternoon. Likewise, if you enjoy the live pre- and post-match episodes we do for every Celtic game and want to comment on the live chat there, then again, you can only do so if you're a channel member. The good news is, however, you can sign up to become a member and support what we do from as little as just £1.50 a month. This goes a long way to helping us do what we do and allows us to keep bringing you the very best Celtic content we can. So if you enjoy what we bring here at the Celtic Exchange and want to see us grow even more, then jump to our homepage right here on YouTube and become a channel member today. Thanks to everyone who's supported us here so far. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the rest of this week's show. Welcome back. We'll kick off this middle section of the show as always with some listeners' questions. First one comes from Robert McEwen. Robert is RMCKEO82 on Twitter. And he says, and we did cover it early bells in the season, after an unbelievable start to the season, what do you think the chances are of another invincible league campaign? Before I get your answers on that, overall so far, Celtic have played 19, won 16, drawn 2 and lost just that one game at Dortmund overall. But in terms of just the league stuff, and that's what Robert's asking, we've played 12, we've won 11, drawn 1, lost 0. Goals for 35, goals against 4, therefore a goal difference of plus 31 and total points of 34. Paul John Axum, he put a tweet out the other day saying that comparing the two league tables, we're actually slightly ahead of where we were during that 2016-17 season.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So after 12 games that season, we were also in the same points, 34, but at that time only had a 25 plus goal difference. James, what do you think? Invincible on the way?
I mean, it's on the cards. You'd need to say as well, you know, the competition isn't coming from where we would typically expect it. It's going to be coming from Aberdeen. I think Hearts in the second half of the season will turn a bit of a corner. I like the manager. I thought he was set up really well in the first half. He'll get them out of that. Hibs are in real trouble.
Jeez.
Don't know how Gray's still in a job, and I hate that he took the job. As a club legend, you can only see it going one way, and it's kind of heading that way now. But there's that pack between, say, Rangers and Hearts. Even I think Rangers are closer to St Johnstone in points in third bottom than they are to us. So that tells a story as to how competitive that is. So there'll be challenges there because a lot of those teams will have, or most of those teams will have a lot to play for all the way through the season. So it's not like you get to halfway point of the season and the 6 is sorted and the bottom 6 is sorted and your challenges kind of drift off. It's going to be competitive to the end.
Always
and that's the benefit of the split. Is it's much derided, but it keeps things competitive. So it'll be very, very challenging, particularly if we go deep in Champions League and get out of the groups.
True.
But I do think the way the squad is treating the league is every single game is your huge audition to be in the Champions League squad. If you're not performing against Aberdeen, against Hearts, against whoever, you're going to slip out. So that is just driving the team on and on. So it's definitely got strong potential, but I could care less as long as we win the league and go far in the Champions League. That's my two.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we're nearly a third of the way through the campaign, Paddy, but it might be an easier question to answer towards the end of next week because we're at Pittodrie next Wednesday, and I would say, based on what we all know now from the first dozen games, is Aberdeen are going to be the biggest challenger. They're feeling good about themselves, generally speaking, despite the loss at the weekend, and they'll be at home, and that'll be a pretty vociferous home crowd. There's less Celtic fans that get tickets for that one as well. They reduced their allocations, so that's a tough test, and we'd be in a far better position to answer the question after that.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from on that. I think I'm with James in the sense of I'd rather see us win the league and have a really strong run in the Champions League, and I think it's what the manager turns his head to. I think if he wanted to do the invincible season, I think Europe was out the way when he'd done it in the first season he was in charge, and I think he manifested the idea that's an incredible season if we go and do that. The impact that would have on his helm at the club, but also his legacy from the very get-go would be incredible. Whereas now, I think that going back to that press conference when he arrived again last year and he's speaking about what he wants to do in Europe, I think that's his focus. I think now we see where we're at in the league, and it's not to get carried away. It's a long season, and 100% when we look at where we were at last season and then the injuries that we come up against, we know that it can turn. We definitely do. I think we won't allow that to happen. I think the squad's wiser, bigger, and a lot more confident in the system that we're playing. But I think he's excited about Champions League. I really, really do. And I think if we go and win these 2 games in Europe this month, in December, then I think it's going to make for a very interesting transfer window, aiming towards the Champions League, never mind the league.
Matt, what do you think? It's an interesting one, and I think overall we would accept that if you lost 1 or 2 league games but went deep in Champions League, that would be a hugely successful season. But we're here now, we're 12 games in, you might as well go for it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not really a metric I lose much sleep over. I think it's one of those things you kind of have an eye on with maybe a quarter of the games to go rather than a quarter of the games played. But because we've done it in recent history, it's something that's always coming up, and also the fact that it was Rodgers that achieved it as well, so he knows what's required to do it. Listen, you just never know. Look at the games we lost last season. Yeah. Some of those games, you come away getting beat and saying, "Oh, we weren't at this, we weren't at that." I think the only game that was really, really poor was the Hearts game at home, because we were so. We just didn't really threaten in that game at all. It was just really, really slow and turgid. In the other games, even in the games that we drew, I mean, the Motherwell game we should have been out of sight, and Motherwell, we scored a penalty with 3 minutes to go and then concede an equaliser. These things can happen in games, but for me, it takes some doing to go the full season unbeaten, especially when we're fighting on multiple fronts. It's not, like I say, I expect us to get beat at some point this season just because of the sheer amount of games, and also I think more so this time round than last time round, Rodgers has shown a real willingness to really flip the squad right round. So there will be some games where he goes, very much what we would regard as a weakened team, but it'll really just be about the science behind it and making sure that there's not too many players getting asked to do too much.
I think the depth of the squad is the real key to this, because we've spoken about Aberdeen, who have been a pretty worthy challenger so far. But I think when it comes to this difficult kind of Christmas and New Year period, and the games start to kind of thin out after that, you need your numbers, don't you? And I think Aberdeen have got a decent, maybe, I don't know, 11, 12, 13. I think Celtic have got a strong 18, 19, 20. And I do think Celtic have got the squad depth if Brendan Rodgers does want to rotate and try and take on the challenge, Paddy, of Europe and League. I think there's maybe a chance to do that.
There is, but again, I think it depends what we look at in Europe. What's the bit we celebrate? So if we go and get into the last 32 playoff, or if we go one better and get into the automatic last 16, does he stop there? And what I'm saying by that, does he think like, right, that's the achievement met, or does he say, hang on a minute, there's a real chance if we've gathered a bit of momentum in the league? That's where I think you're talking about the rotation. You look at some of the bigger teams in Europe when they start to get to the later stages of football. When it comes to their league games, they're flipping the full team. I'm not saying we're going to be Real Madrid this season, but I remember going to see Real Madrid in the league, and it was in between Champions League semi-finals, and you're looking forward to seeing the likes of Gareth Bale, Modric, Ronaldo. Not one of them were playing. No. Not one of them were playing. The full team was rested, and they accepted the leagues. I think they were sitting third in the league. They weren't going to win it, but they were like, that's done. The focus Europe. Aye. And I think Rodgers will have that same kind of idea if we continue to build the momentum in the league.
It's what we've been crying out for as fans, so you can't have it both ways like that. Oh no, you know, we want to go unbeaten in the league. But I think every fan would agree that some sort of sacrifice is probably, based on where we're at, some sort of sacrifice has got to be required around that. You know, where there may be games where we do change the team and understand that we may drop points, but it's just required for the greater good.
I think it's interesting that as fans we've been screaming for years to say, put the focus in Europe. You know, we'll find new rivals there. And now you're hearing prominent voices like Martin O'Neill coming out and saying the gap is just too vast. You know, that's not where Celtic's focus should be. And you have to say, strategically, the board, they've spent the money, they've got us into a position to do something in Europe. It's a very strange time. There's very, very little to complain about. So it makes me enjoy it.
I wonder just where the heads are at. I mean, hypothetically, so we've got this kind of tough run of games. I mentioned before the Hearts game, with 10 games between now and the turn of the year, of which we know Brugge and Dinamo Zagreb are the two European games. How do you think we would all feel if Celtic got maximum points in those two games and guaranteed at least been through in the top 24 in the Champions League, but maybe drop points at Pittodrie and AN Other? Do you think you accept that? Do you think the fan base can get on board with that?
I think AN Other's a tough game. They've been doing well.
Good at home.
No, but I don't think it necessarily has to be mutually exclusive. I think we can.
Oh, but it's playing hypothetical. Would you accept it?
But I think that's the beauty of being a Celtic fan, is that we don't think like that. I know we are kind of hypothetically chatting about it, but when it comes to the game, whoever we're playing, it's like, right. I mean, we all really thought we were going to beat Dortmund in Dortmund. Let's be honest. We were all sitting going, no bother, lads, we're going to do this.
They're in trouble.
Would you take a draw against Dortmund? No chance.
No chance. We're going for the win.
Exactly.
So it's just the way we are. But in many ways, it's that mentality that ensures that we keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's just part of the enjoyment of being a Celtic fan.
Not to accuse you of being a Tory MP, but you're avoiding the question here, Miff. What
no,
we're talking about is after the fact.
No.
After the fact.
So just an MP would have been fine. I don't see why I had to be a Tory.
Said. So on the 31st of December, Tino's question is, you've lost 2 games in the league, but you've qualified for the knockout of the Champions League. You accept it?
You'd accept it, but I don't think you'd exactly be buzzing, would you?
I'd be buzzing. Aye.
I'd be over them.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be buzzing with getting beat twice in the league. I'm saying, when you had time to sit down with your cup of tea and custard cream and reflect on it, closer to New Year, you would say, aye, right, fine. But I'm saying at the time, you wouldn't be going, oh, feeder DD, we've dropped 3 points, but that's fine. You wouldn't be fine at all. That's my point.
I'm going to move it on. Thanks to Robert McEwen for that question. Second question,
Tory MP.
Second question comes from Sparta Crag on Blue Sky. Signed up yet?
Sparta Crag?
Sparta Crag, that's
fantastic.
Signed up yet? Blue Sky?
Oh, can't
No. Give it a couple of weeks.
Cannot be introducing new social media into my life.
His algorithm
nonsense,
just get good on X.
Anyway,
nonsense.
I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what he's asked, he says, might it be better for Arne Engels' development at this stage, Arne Engels, to stick with Brendan Rodgers' general 60-30 game model, so i.e. substitutions on the 60-minute mark, but instead have Bernardo starting at this moment in time with Engels then coming in and therefore having a bit less pressure on him. What do you think, Miff? There's a lot of talk about Arne Engels just now, what he's doing, what folks think he's not doing. What do you think of that as a suggestion?
I think you need to remember he's 19, so...
21.
Is he?
Aye.
I thought he was 19.
Bad night for you.
Jeez, well, even at that, 21, new league, he's still a young player. He's played a lot of games, but he's a young player in a new environment. I don't really have many concerns. You can see that the tools are there, so I'm quite comfortable. He's had a few games where I think more he's had bad periods in games rather than bad games. He's still positively contributed. Again, but 21. You're probably thinking, where am I going after this? You know, so it's a difficult time for him to play. No, I would say I can see more positives than negatives. The things that he needs to work on, I'm confident that the manager will work on him with, because if you only need to look at Nicolas Kuhn to see what he can do when he's working with somebody and he's got a project there to work on. He loves that. His ego loves that. But it's us that benefit from that, because the players turn in performances like we're seeing for Kuhn. And even go back to somebody that we spoke about already in Kyogo. Kyogo's game's evolved, I would say, slightly under Rodgers, but what you can see is he's still every bit as sharp in front of goal. So no concerns with Engels. But conversely, I still want Bernardo to start more. I do agree with that. Yeah. So, and it looks like now, based on Hatate's form, that's most likely to be Engels that would be sacrificed. Yeah, just on that, so to answer the question, James, do you think... Sparta Crag? I like that. It's decent. I like that. Do you think, would you be quite happy, let's say Bruges on Wednesday night, would you be quite happy if Bernardo starts and Engels comes in? Or, you know, the price tag muddies the waters a bit. It's not his, whether he signed for $1 million or 11 million, it's, you know, it makes no difference to him. He's the player that he was when he signed, regardless. That is a sick fade.
Do you drop a player that's got 3 assists in 4 Champions League games?
Spot on. Right, I'll give you the stats. Perfect. So Champions League stats: 1 goal, 3 assists. He's covered 45 kilometres in those 4 games, and this is a lot about the stuff that people don't see. He puts in some ground, some work. So he's covered 45 kilometres in those 4 games. That makes him 25th in the whole competition in terms of distances. Top of the competition is Callum McGregor.
I forgot that.
He's covered 50.5 kilometres. So there's a lot to Engels' game. I'm going to give you something from John McElhinney. You know John Mack. He messaged earlier on the day. J-Mac. He says a key point that a lot of people are missing about Engels is his delivery. We've not had someone who can take corners and free kicks like he does in years. He'll be at prime level this time next year after a year's coaching under Brendan Rodgers. P.S. Saturday was a masterclass in tactics by Rodgers across that second half. But that's the thing. So if Engels is doing his thing but not creating and scoring all the time, people are like, we signed a guy for 11 million. I want goals. There's a lot more to his game. There is, and I think we've said this loads of times in this show. 11 million in football nowadays is not a lot of money. Yeah. It really isn't. It's a prospect, and I think under a manager like Brendan Rodgers, he will take it to another level. This guy's in the Belgium squad now, and he's not there for no reason. It's an underperforming Belgium squad at the moment, but I think we've got to remember his age. We've got to remember, as you've said, 19. 19. 19 plus 2. We've got to remember his new surroundings for him. But I also don't think you have time in the Bundesliga. I also don't think you're getting Belgium call-ups. I also don't think that you're getting 3 assists in the Champions League and against difficult games as well that we've been involved in. I think there's a lot more to come from him, and I can't understand the people that are doubting him and calling him for him to, like, saying he's not good enough for what we've spent. Give it time. I would also say two of his poorer performances, if you look at Saturday night and then you also look at Kilmarnock. Now, if you talk about a culture shock, playing at Tynecastle, you know, it's quite unusual. It's a unique atmosphere. But also playing on that pitch at Kelly, I mean, you could see he was literally like, what the hell is going on here? You know, it's not really football, is it? Yeah. So this is all new for him. Yeah. These are all his firsts. So, you know, we need to be what we should be in that supporters and you know, get behind the players. I'm very much in agreement with the general tone here that he's a talented guy, and he'll definitely get better. To John's point, you know, he's a guy who's only going to improve under Brendan Rodgers, and I think he's been pretty decent so far. He's had a couple of moments. I think the Ross County game after the Dortmund defeat, where we got the late goal through County win 2-1, he wasn't his best that day either. But you're going to get a bit of inconsistency with these young guys. We're also that day. I do think he should be starting against Bruges on Wednesday, but James, we've got, as I say, beyond Bruges, there's 8 more games between now and the turn of the year. Would you be keen to see certainly Bernardo, if not Luke McCowan, getting a few starts in there and maybe Engels phasing in and out?
When appropriate, at the kind of, inverted commas, easier games, it's not Wednesday night. And one of the reasons why is you can tell he's a learner, as in his stats are excellent so far. He's getting about the pitch. He's given us dimensions we didn't have. He's not Matt O'Reilly. He's a very different player. But you can tell he's developing game by game. And I don't want a player like that to be sitting on the bench. He's not learning anything there. I want him on the pitch, having bad games and learning from those bad games. And I think Rodgers is taking players out individually and saying, right, watching games back again, and he'll definitely be part of that. It's Rodgers saying himself, it's criminal he can't play some of the players he's got on the bench from the start. It's just the way it is. But we can't beg for squad depth and real strength we've got there, and then argue for certain players to get in and other players to get out. As I'm arguing that Engels can stay in, somebody can say Bernardo. Bernardo, I think, is one of the classiest players we've had in a long, long time, and he's very unfortunate. On Saturday, again, a bit like Idah, he's coming in when they've been given a bit of a pummeling by that.
Get rest, James.
You know what I mean?
The touch for the third goal was great from Bernardo.
Beautiful.
Also, the fact he's read it and got there.
Yeah,
It's
just
pure
his
desire.
Getting past the guy.
Fantastic.
Amazing. I real kind of intelligent footballer. Big fan. But I think Engels is the guy I want to see starting.
It's very reminiscent of what you're seeing from Engels at the moment, almost of Bernardo. When he first arrived, he was getting those games. I thought he was excellent against Atletico last season. And I think that he was sometimes a little bit suspect to keep up with the pace of the Scottish League as well. I think we're seeing that a little bit. But what you've seen Bernardo is he's realised it's going to be rough. I need to get stuck in here. That'll come with this guy, 100%.
I think Bernardo's a great example. He's a better player than he was 12 months ago for the experiences he's had, Champions League and otherwise at Celtic, and just getting used to the environment. I have no concerns at all about Arne Engels, but it's a topical one, so thanks to Sparta Crag and also thanks to Robert for his question. If you want us to answer one of your questions on a future show, you can message us on the likes of Twitter and Blue Sky, or you can leave us a voicemail on any page of the website, thecelticexchange.com, or you can go old school, just email me, Tino at thecelticexchange.com. Let's take another short break. When we come back, we'll play this week's Mystery Goal Scorer. Welcome back. Let's begin this final section of the show as always by playing Name the Goal Scorer. You know the rules by now. We'll play a clip from a notable Celtic goal. Goal scorer's name has been beeped out from the commentary, and all you have to do is name the goal scorer. Before we kick on though, let's reveal the answer to last week's Mystery Goal Scorer by playing the clip in full.
Only as far as Scott Brown. Brown back out to Matthews. Shakhtar holding on for extra time now. Brown inside to Samaras. Samaras has got Ledley in the centre of midfield. Ledley can just play the ball out to the left hand side. He plays it to Stokes in the inside left channel. Anthony Stokes. Still Stokes, he's inside the box. It's still Stokes. Plays it back. Yeah! Oh, James Morris is goal! It's a goal! Celtic! Unbelievable! An extra time! Oh, one of the Champions League group stages!
Did Lenny not get down and jump and tap at him, didn't he?
Yeah. Do you know there's some quotes from Lenny? I was digging into it for this one, and he was saying that was one of the best nights of his footballing life. And keep in mind, we'd already beaten Barcelona in 2012. This is 2013. The goal, just to clarify, is James Forrest against Shakhtar Karagandhi, Champions League qualifier, 28th of August 2013 at Celtic Park. As we'll probably remember, we lost the first leg 2-0, and then Chris Commons and George Samaras levelled the game on the night at Celtic Park, and Forrest steps up with a 90th minute winner. Mif, what we at? We're about 11 years down the track, and your man Jamesy's still doing it. Some boy.
Aye. What a night that was. Quite a strange game, because we get back into it quite early doors, and then there was a prolonged period. They were, I think, did they not have one kicked off the line?
Yeah, there was a few chances.
That they actually did threaten in that game, but no, listen, that's what it's all about. Last minute goals to send you through, and if I remember rightly, that campaign wasn't exactly the most enthralling campaign. I think we managed to beat Benfica at home, which was the stick we were beaten with about the last home victory in the Champions League. Kyle scored, I think. Had a lot of potential in that squad. I particularly like Joe Ledley. Joe Ledley was a big favourite of mine. But
Derek Borichter came off the bench that night.
Did he? Oh jeez. But just not happy. Very, very happy memories. I wasn't at that particular game. I was in the house, but I was going absolutely mental.
There's you mentioned the whole thing about James Forrest scoring 15 seasons on the bounce. So good account on Twitter. Hail history. A fella called Matthew Marr. Matthew's been on the show. He's a Celtic author. So he says James Forrest's new contract gives him a chance to make different types of history. He can become Celtic's most decorated player, and he's number 2 at the moment behind Bobby Lennox. and also feasibly the number 2 on the club's list of players who have scored in successive seasons. It's feasible that Forrest might make second, but he's unlikely to get to the top. For that, he'd need to sign a new deal till 2027. If he did, it'd put him level, as in if he scored in the next 3 seasons, it'd put him level with Jimmy McMenemy, who got 18 consecutive goal-scoring seasons between 1902 and 1919. In the current squad, no one else is near Forrest's potential record. The closest is Callum McGregor, who's on 11 seasons, alongside Bertie Peacock and Bobby Murdoch. And you can read the full list of this at the Celtic wiki page. So I'll share that from Matthew at Hail Hail History. But he's up there with some real Celtic heroes, James, and to score 15 seasons consecutively, and there's every chance he's going to add to that in the coming weeks. It's an incredible record.
I think there's absolutely no doubt he'll hit it for this season, and with the extension, you know, he's just going to be a guy that comes on, as we're saying at the top of the show, he's as predictable now as he's ever been. You know, he's more predictable now than he's ever been.
In a good way.
In a hugely positive way, absolutely. And with that, he's going to be getting himself into pockets to pick up goals. You know, you just saw from his attitude on Saturday. So he's probably going to become Celtic's most decorated player without too much effort.
There was a tweet, so obviously his deal was announced, was it Friday morning or Saturday morning? And so I can't remember who it was, but basically there was a picture of the deal being announced. James Forrest extends his deal, and someone was just like, what year is it, man? It just keeps getting deals. But it's thoroughly deserved. And Paddy, obviously we've covered a bit about James earlier on in the show there, but to score for a club like Celtic, 15 years on the bounce, and very probably add to that is something else.
It's incredible. I think it's testament to him. I think we've seen what Forrest has done for us over the seasons. Some massive goals. That one against Karagandhi being one of them. Lazio, great night that night for him as well. And what you've seen is that I think coming back from that injury, he probably realised himself, I've not got the same pace that I'm used to having, and what he used to beat a lot of players with. He's very intelligent with the ball. I feel now. I think he's a lot more comfortable having the ball closer to his feet, because he's strengthened. He's got bigger.
Yeah, he's in brilliant shape.
And I think that's been the key for him. I think that's going to give him another 2-3 seasons possibly. Whether it's at this level, I think it will be. I know obviously it's just the 1 year extension, but I think he might go to 2027 just the way he's keeping himself in good shape. He's less injuries, obviously less game time, but he's one of those players when we're bringing him on and say the game is tight, whether it be in Europe, whether it be against anyone in the league, if we need to see out a game, James Forrest is a great player to bring on.
I think that's it. He is a guy who can have an impact, and he can certainly create, and he was creative when he came on Saturday, but he's also a guy that could see a game out. If you're winning 2-1 in Europe, narrow game, Jamesy for the last 20 minutes would seem a very sensible shout.
It's that intelligence, it's that game management that he's got in his locker now.
No doubt. A lot of folk Mif thought that he should have got the penalty, should have taken the penalty on Saturday. He obviously won it, but Adam Idah is a taker and pulled rank, and obviously that kind of thing is decided pre-game. What do you think? Should the sentiment have got involved there, and should James have been allowed to hit it?
Absolutely. No doubt whatsoever. But like James says, the way that he's contributing, there's going to be other opportunities for him, and for him to play the way that he played coming on in a game like that, you know, I think that speaks volumes for his professionalism. That was kind of noted last year when he came in and made his contributions at a time when the team was really, really struggling. I'm just delighted for him. One of my personal favourites, but I think it is more of an example of the attitude you need to have, that sort of single-mindedness you need to have as a professional footballer, a professional athlete, is to always believe that you're going to get a chance again and that you're going to take it when it comes. And for him to be doing that and still looking after himself this deep into his career, that's why he's been rewarded for new contracts, because different coaches come in and they all want to work with him. Yeah,
and you know, we're going to cover a wee bit just as we close out the show on youth players at Celtic and what it takes to make it, and the term that comes up time after time is elite mentality. James's got it, Callum McGregor's got it, Kieran Tierney has got it, and I think that's the real aspect that some of these young players need to embrace and get on board with. It's one thing having ability, you need to have that mindset, but in the meantime the James Forrest story continues and it's great to see. Okay, let's take a listen to this week's mystery goal scorer.
So Celtic with it all to do now. Tosh McKinlay gives a cross, it's and that's in. Well, this is quite incredible. 3 goals apiece here at Ibrox. Picking his spot in the far corner.
You got it?
I think so.
Want to go for it? We'll beat you out.
John Hughes.
It's not John Hughes, not Yogi. I know the one you're thinking of, but it's not that.
Paul Byrne?
No. My trusty sidekick here helped me pick this one out, so he's not playing this week. He helped me dig it out. But as always, what we'll do, we'll reveal the answer next week's show.
Poacher turned gamekeeper.
Do you want to have a last crack?
I just thought it was Jock Brown commentating, is it?
Jeremy McNee.
I thought it was just him swearing. He was getting
Jerry, no.
No.
Nothing. Okay, what we'll do, we'll share the clip on socials for anyone that wants to have a go there, and as I say, we'll reveal the answer in next week's show. To see out the episode, as I mentioned there, so Brendan Rodgers was speaking pre-match ahead of the Hearts game and responded to a question from Josh McCaffrey of Celts Are Here regarding youth players getting a chance at Celtic. Josh was here last Wednesday I think it was, discussing Celtic's youth players and their loan players. That's an area he specialises in. Really interesting conversation covering guys like Daniel Cummins and Francis Turley and various other kids who may or may not make it at Celtic. But as I say, Josh asked the question of Brendan Rodgers about kids getting a chance, and this is what he said. He says, young players will always get a chance here, and there's always a number of factors on why they can and can't get that chance, but the first one's normally ability, and if they're good enough, they'll get a chance. You'll hear all these things about Celtic and the pathway, and there's not a pathway here and they don't get a chance. If you're good enough, you'll get a chance. Good enough in terms of your game and good enough in your attitude. Do that, have a little bit of patience, then you can become a Celtic player. What do you think of that, James? I wouldn't say he was full spiky, Brendan, but he was quite firm in that, because a lot of folk have said, Daniel Cummins should get a shot and this guy, and there's no pathway. And I think he's basically gone back to basics. If you're good enough, there is a pathway.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing Celtic want to do is spend money, full stop, if there's somebody they can get no spending money on. So the default for the club is always and the fans love it as well, to see players coming out of youth and developing into the first team. We've just spent chunks to show waxing lyrical about Jamesy. We often do about Callum and others as well. So, fans are always going to embrace that. But it's really tough. You can have all the ability, but I think the mentality is the hardest thing at Celtic. Mm-hmm. It's much misunderstood, and these youth players have got the best chance to understand it, a better chance than anyone, because they've lived it since like maybe 6-7 years old. But I was listening to a clip last week, Talk Sport, guys talking about Brendan Rodgers for West Ham, right? And I think he would take it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he's going to win the league in Scotland, but that doesn't count for anything. And it's like, how many players and managers come up here with that dismissive attitude? Because see, winning every single week, it is so hard. We're talking about invincibles and trebles and all these things. To have the mentality to pick that up every single week and dropping points is a disaster. And that's the thing, if the players are able to come out of the youth setup with that elite mentality, as you call it, it's been developed in them. Can they maintain it as they mature? And we would love to see them if they can. Yeah,
and Matt O'Reilly referenced that elite mentality. I think it was after he scored that winner against Man City, and he was speaking about, he started talking about the Celtic experience, and he says, I really admire the Callum McGregors and the James Forrest, because it is that sheer demand to win every single game regardless of the opposition, Dortmund and otherwise. And I think that's just life at Celtic. Paddy, James talks about that requirement for the young players coming through. Let's say Daniel Cummins is the current example, to have that elite mentality. I don't know the answer to this, and I guess I don't know if you do either, but you would like to think and hope that the club do some work on the mental side of the game with these players as well. People talk about these 4 pillars of coaching: technical, tactical, physical and mental. And I think there's a real onus in the first 3, but mental doesn't seem to get covered too much in the Scottish game. Do you think that's a gap? Because there's clearly talent. These guys all need to be talented to get to Celtic in the first place, whether they're there from 7 years of age or we take them on at 15, 16. So there's no doubt and no lack of ability and talent. But is there enough work going on in the mental side of the game to get them to bridge that gap between academy and first team? Well,
from what we've seen in the return of youth players, probably not. I think we've spoke about how heavy a Celtic jersey is, and it's a privilege to wear it for players. And a lot of the youth players that we have seen come through that have struggled with the weight of that, that's the difficulty. And I think that elite mentality that you're talking about, that comes from the demand of the fans. I think if the fans don't see it in 3-4 games, they're on you. They're on you. And it's not to say I don't always agree with that, but I can also understand that there's such a worry when you're playing at this level. You've got that ultimate drive as a supporter that you want to win week in, week out. You want to see us win the league every single season. That, even a 1-0 victory, if the performance isn't good, there's still question marks. Yeah. That's the kind of level that we're at.
Mikey suffered with that.
100%.
Got the talent all day.
Absolutely, and I think he's not the only one. I think that that really is a thing at Celtic that they do need to look at. But again, ultimately, I think that also just comes down to the person and whether they can take that on board as well, which is really sad. But that's just the Scottish League. It's that big club mentality is huge. Before I move on, I've got the goal, but I know I'll tell you after it. I just remembered it there.
Got you.
But I think that is the difficulty. I think it's got to come from that early stages. You're speaking about the elite side. That comes from players believing that they are going to play for Celtic. It comes from really buying into it from the get-go. There's plenty of players that have got bags of talent, but do they have the belief? Do they have the mindset? Do they have the patience? Not a lot of them do, and they end up on the B line as well. So
first time around, Rodgers caught, I think it was the Tavares twins and all this stuff rolling about in jeeps and all these, just thinking they're flash, and calling themselves Celtic players. He said, "You're not a Celtic player. You train
I remember
to be
that.
a Celtic player." Just getting that into their heads, that they've not made it. Guys thinking they've made it at like 17, 18
but
years
we're
old.
also even looking as close as 3 years ago when Ange came in and said the first team have not been playing the same. The youth teams have not been playing the same system as the first team.
Aye.
That's fundamental.
Yeah, of course it is.
I think from Rodgers' comments there, that would suggest that the quality isn't coming through.
It sounds like
So
it. He was quite pointed about the whole thing.
That is more of a concern for me because we've got very expensive centres set up, a lot of money getting put into it. Where is that gap missing? So I had my youngest team had the honour, privilege of being invited in to play Celtic's 2017's year below. My boys are 2016, and some of these kids were absolutely unbelievable. But I mean, in terms of individual skill, what feet, well, they were playing 7-a-sides, but honestly, you were just standing and going, my God, young boys that can do things well. But I could only dream about doing.
These kids are like 7.
No, 7, 8. Now, what I'm saying is these are the most prodigiously talented kids that are probably going about in West Central, maybe even the whole of Scotland. But certainly you've got more a population grab down here, and I dare say Rangers will be doing the same, and other clubs about. I think Queen's Park are really quite active just now as well with their youth setup. My point being is that I would challenge Andy to go and watch that and just think, wow, if that kid's able to do that at that age, I look forward to seeing what they'd be able to do. Now, that has been happening for about the past 15 years, I would say, since they brought in the sort of Fun 4s, Fun 5s, 7-a-side, 9-a-side, moving up to 11-a-side pathway.
When does it stop being fun?
So you go, it never stops being fun, Tino, come on.
Fun
Just
60s.
about the first day of Fun 4s, I think. So that pathway is great, and it's given kids, it's done in a tiered manner. And what will happen is, the likes of Celtic and Rangers and all the other teams will have their academy teams, who will then, by the time they get to move into 11-a-side, so that's about first year at school for most kids, that's when they'll be kind of moving up into 11-a-side football, and Celtic would be signing someone to stay with them. My point is, what happens between that point of you being prodigiously talented and unbelievably skillful at football to then not making it through, not even necessarily play with Celtic, but sometimes falling away from football altogether, or ending up playing in the lower leagues, and by that I mean maybe junior, whatever. Is it purely mentality? Is it purely opportunity? I just don't know what the answer is to that, but there is a huge void in between that journey starting and then entering into the first team. Now, yes, it's only a small percentage that make it, but what I'm saying is there is absolutely no doubt that Celtic and other clubs are getting players in of considerable talent, and for whatever reason they are not making it through that journey. Now, loads of things can happen there. I'm not saying that's Celtic's fault. I'm not saying it's a player's fault. Loads of circumstances can happen. Maybe just somebody doesn't want to play football anymore midway through that journey because it's huge commitment. Mums, dads, grands, grandas, aunties, uncles taking them 3 times a week to training, then at the weekend travelling all over the place. What is missing in Scottish football, where undoubtedly you would say in other countries you can see that pathway happening in big teams where they're regularly bringing through youth players, is actually a mentality issue? Are we giving kids too much too young?
James, a social issue?
I think it's I do. I'm 100% agreeing that. 100%.
Just in terms of building the resilience and stuff.
But building the resilience, but also are we giving them too much in terms of money? So if somebody like Daniel Kelly is a classic example where he's getting a reasonable wage at Celtic but not a great one. But somebody, Millwall can come in and quadruple his wages, whereas Rodgers is probably at that point where you go, right, I think you're a good player and you could contribute to the squad, but you're not that good that I'm going to go and offer you that amount of money.
You've got
so
levels.
Celtic are constantly got to be caught in that sort of, right, we want to incentivise you to earn your more money by playing first team football. All he has to do is make that move, join an under 21 squad down south, and he's made maybe 3-4 times the money he would have made at Celtic.
Yeah, whether he plays or not.
I know. There's a rumour that Kelly's on 8 a week at Millwall.
He'd been one with us.
Should Celtic have offered him 10? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I don't think they should have.
That's my point. And
that's
Rodgers,
the sticker twist
Rodgers is trying to do the right thing and incentivise him by playing.
Yeah, motivate him.
We should be behind.
See, if you're
Rodgers
driving a Range Rover before making the first team, that's a problem.
Is this
And that's what does encourage me, just as we wrap things up here, is that Brendan Rodgers, he's quoted in recent times, like over the last week or so, is saying he spent 15 years as a youth coach before he was even a first team manager. So he's been in that environment. He talked about, I think it's from the AGM, he quoted the fact that someone, don't know if it was Joe McHugh from Video Celts, who was quite vocal by all accounts at the AGM. He threw the accusation that Celtic's youth team get beat by Montrose in the Scottish Cup this year and Morton last year, something like that. And he said it happens. He said I had a Chelsea team we'd spent a fortune on in Colchester put us out. It's youth football, and it's not about winning those tournaments. It's about developing those players. And Brendan Rodgers has a whole clutch of those Chelsea players went on to win a Champions League. And that's the bigger picture thinking. But I like the fact that Rodgers is back at the club and looking at those areas with his experience. And your man Tidser,
He's the boy.
what's his name? Paul Tisdale?
Don't know anymore.
He's obviously going to steer that as well, and Brendan Rodgers has referenced it. But whether Daniel Cummins and the other lads come through remains to be seen. Well, a bit of luck we might get across to the B team game at Lesser Hampden tomorrow. Wednesday, Celtic play Bruges, and we'll see if we can get an eye on things then. As we start to wrap up the show though, I'll come to you first, Paddy, for your final thoughts.
Yeah, 1 out of 10 complete, as you've said, for this run in for the 10 games. I think listen, we're speaking about players coming in. We're speaking about a starting 11. This squad is going to get used a lot in the next 6 weeks. And I think that everyone seems to be on their toes. I still think we will see Baye before the end of the season. Or at the end of this year. I think he will be involved in some way because Greg Taylor looked under a lot of pressure on Saturday night. Kind of refound himself a little bit, composed himself in the second half. But if we really want to be in a position where we go and take 6 points in the Champions League, I think you play Alex Baye. And I think that's the call he needs to
be
make.
ruthless.
Aye.
Play your best players.
I would agree.
Would you say that?
I think Greg just needs a wee Alice band.
He can barely
Think
see
he's getting in his way?
Or,
Is that what it is? He can't see the passes to the side.
the bun.
Aye.
Very
Wee
nice.
bun.
James, your own final thoughts.
It's an exciting week. You know, this could be Celtic qualifying for the knockout stages of the Champions League, just with one game to do it. So, going to be a tough game. I've watched a wee bit of them in this tournament, and this is the thing about this tournament: you watch games you otherwise wouldn't watch. It's the genius of it, I would say. I'm tuning into some mad games, and they're very technical, very structured. I think it would be quite a stuffy game. That's what they'll be looking for. So it's for us to unlock that. But ironically, it's probably what we've got most experience of is unlocking stuffy teams. So just a real opportunity for Celtic to go and show it.
Yep, another week to look forward to. My final word goes to you.
Bruges are decent.
They won 7-0 at the weekend.
Bruges are decent. I think we'll obviously be buoyed by the fact the kind of record that we've got so far and the results we've achieved so far in the competition. But listen, these are the weeks that we are. These are the games, specifically Wednesday night's games that we've been crying out for. A European game at home with something really riding on it, you know. So no, I really can't wait. Absolutely buzzing.
So that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James, Paddy and Mif, and thanks to you for tuning in. We'll have pre- and post-match episodes out this week for Wednesday's Champions League game against Bruges at Celtic Park, as well as Saturday's league clash with Ross County. And remember to visit the celticexchange.supercast.com to show your support to the Celtic Exchange this season. In the meantime, as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.